Well, it's time to pull out the old glass slipper. Cinderella has arrived to the World Series. The Penguins' top line heating up the ice. And honest, they only needed to pick up some cologne and underwear. I meant to pay for it, seriously. It's Thursday Night Sports Talk. Welcome in on the airnetwork.net as we talk about regional, national sports, and of course things that give you a little insight as to what's happening from around the region. With me, I've got our experts tonight from Altoona, Dave Shannon.
Good evening. Yes,
and from Huntington, PA, it's the historian statistician of the Huntington Bearcats, Tad States. What's up?
How y'all doing?
Oh, man, we're looking forward to another exciting night. By the way, joining us in just a few moments will be our fantasy football guy, Jimmy Tighe, and he'll talk about the NFL along with some other topics of discussion. But right off the bat, guys, hey, looks like that Major League thing is coming down to the end as the Kansas City Royals have already wrapped up their segment of course, the championship. In the American League, we're waiting for the National League to wrap up theirs between the Giants and the Cardinals. Let's take a minute and give honor to the Kansas City Royals, one of the greatest teams I've seen since the 1950s. And they are kind of like Cinderella. What do you think, Dave? I mean, here's a team that, hey, pretty much we didn't even watch them all season until near the end, and they're captivating, if nothing else.
Well, and there's got to be any number of teams that are kicking themselves in the butts over the fact that now Kansas City is in the World Series. And the biggest one would have to be the Detroit Tigers. When you sit down and you look at the Central Division in the American League and you see Detroit and you see the Kansas City Royals, on paper you're going to look at that coming into the season, maybe even, July, August, you're looking at that. And you're saying, well, Detroit wins. And Detroit did not win. Kansas City gets in. And at this particular juncture, I think they believe in themselves. And they continue to make, it's not just that, they are Cinderella. There's no doubt about that. But they are playing. Every guy that is out there on the field is putting a maximum effort in. And boy, talk about getting hot at the right time, if you want to apply that phrase to these guys, and getting that chance on the national stage to show what you have. A pretty darn good team, and it's nice to see the teams like the Kansas Cities and the Pittsburghs that have been down for so long to rise up, kind of be like a phoenix. Here's Kansas City, though, making their first step back into the postseason and heading the whole way to the World Series. And you know what? I don't know what stops them now, Chad. What about you? Do you think anything stops them?
Well, I did not pick them to beat Baltimore. I thought the Orioles would stop them just because I thought
me too.
Just because I thought they had a good bullpen. Well, they 2-1 their way right into the World Series. I mean, that game yesterday, and I watched it from start to finish, was kind of a microcosm of what we've seen in all 8 games they've played, where they scored runs not even on a hit. It was an infield up. It bounced real high that, their shortstop, Alcides Escobar, came in, slid into home plate, kicked the ball away from the catcher, and 2-run score. And it held up because they had that three-headed monster at the back end of their rotation to be able to just totally shut down people. If there's one thing that points to why their magic might run out, and I think I spoke of this last week, is it's an even year. And the Giants win the World Series in an even year. So if there's any more destiny stacked up against them, it would be just that the Giants win every other year. But honestly, they are just so fun to watch. And Dave, I kind of equate them to a goalie in hockey, because we'll talk about hockey. I know you so enjoy that. A goalie in hockey that just gets hot in the playoffs. And if you look at the way their pitching is and the way they're playing defense, they just remind me of that hot goalie that's coasting the team all the way through.
Well, there's been some talk about Ned Yost, their manager, and I've heard some things said about this guy, and I don't really know. But, some people were saying, he's just a clown, and he's not really truly a manager. What's your assessment of Ned Yost as a manager? First Chad and then Dave.
I think Ned Yost just has to get out of the way and let his players play. I haven't seen enough of them over the course of the season to really evaluate and say, Ned's a good guy, Ned's a bad guy. Kansas City's not in a market, or they're in a market where we just don't get to see their games very much.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen out of in the postseason is he's managed them to 8 wins. How can you deny what he's doing?
Oh, yeah, he swept the entire 2 series. Dave, you got to believe that this guy has probably brought to the team at least some strategy that we haven't seen since, quite frankly, in the day of analytics and all the metrics and stuff. We haven't seen this in probably 30 years, the way baseball is being played under Ned Yost.
Well, here's the thing about that. As Chad said, I mean, he's the guy that makes the lineup card every night. He's the guy that goes out and makes the decisions as the game is going on, how the pitching gets changed, who he brings in from the bullpen, who he starts. All of that is up to him. However, there is a time when, and I'm going to throw this in, and some people can be angry at me if they want, but I do believe that Mike Tomlin's early success with the Steelers was because he was blessed with a very talented team, and he was able to guide them through. Maybe, and here's one. Look at this, another relating to Pittsburgh sports. How is it that Dan Bilesma did not get a job during the offseason as a head coach? Well, maybe a lot of people looked at him and said the reason he was a good head coach was he had talent that was capable of making him succeed. Mm-hmm. I really think a lot of that I think you can apply that to Kansas City. I think those guys, and just going all out every game, every inning, not letting up at all. We were talking before we hit the air about the Mike Moustakas play the other night at third base going into the fans. Mm-hmm. He's made any number of plays at third base. I mean, I was watching the game, and, Pedro Alvarez fans can hate me if they want to, but I saw this one play he made at third. And, great play, snags this ball down the line that if it gets by him as extra bases, stops, takes his time, throws the guy out. And I just said to a friend of mine that was watching the game with me, I said, hey, Pedro, hope you're watching this.
How about that?
That's how you play third base.
Kansas City Royals, by the way, defeating the Orioles last night 2-1 to sweep that Baltimore series. They're heading to the World Series on Tuesday, and we're still awaiting the winner of the series in the National League. Last night, Giants defeating the Cards 6-4. The Giants lead that series at 3-1. And I got to tell you, though, my feeling is I'd love to see that interstate rivalry between the Cardinals and the Royals. I think that would just be fantastic. But as Chad said, it may be an off year. It might be the Giants' year. And tonight, those two teams are playing as Giants lead that series 3-1. And it's Wainwright against Bumgarner. And, Chad, how do you see that game turning out in that whole series, by the way?
Again, it's an even year. And who am I to go against the Giants in an even year? And Bruce Bochy, who I think is definitely a Hall of Fame manager at this point in time. Bumgarner's hot. And we just talked about, the hot goalie in, hockey whenever it gets to the playoff time. This guy is, sun-like hot on the mound. So everything he's dealing is aces at this point in time. So, I think it's going to be a tight ball game tonight, but at home with that raucous crowd, I think the Giants get it done, and they advance to the World Series to face the Royals.
What do you think, Dave, on the game tonight and that series? You think that'll end up with the Giants just taking the series and wrapping it up maybe tonight?
I think so. I think one of the things, again, and St. Louis, this is something they're going to have to get by, to move on and, get back to whatever position they get to in the postseason, whether it's the series or wherever. But I'll tell you what, you just see such a remarkable difference in that team. It's different in the regular season when an injury happens to a key player because you have time to adjust to that. But Yadier Molina is out of the game. And, boy, I'll tell you what, you talk about that phrase, heart and soul of a team. And with Molina out, A.J. Pierzynski is a, more than capable catcher and someone they picked up and who's doing a fine job there behind the plate. That's not necessarily the issue. The issue is having him in, and it seems to change the mood of that team You know, it just really does. And I just see the Giants going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to be everything now has turned into a nightmare for Fox Sports.
Oh, man.
Theoretically, in ratings. Now, the one thing that will help them in ratings, because America loves an underdog. And I'll tell you what, Kansas City, you can't get much more of an underdog. So the ratings for the World Series might not be too bad, but from the market sizes, you know, it's like I have Kansas City in the World Series. Well, our ratings are going to be great.
Yeah, we had that discussion earlier today on the Steve Austin Show, by the way, on the air from 10 to midnight, or actually 10 to noon. Then again, 5 to 7 and 10 to midnight. But here again, Thursday Night Sports Talk with Dave Shannon, Chad States, and Greg Banks. And here's the thing. It's awfully difficult for a lot of people to find these series if they don't have cable, if they're not cabled up. You know, traditionally, let's face it, 29 years ago, when the Royals appeared back in 85, there was one known network to watch the games on. And we all ran home, or maybe it was earlier in the day, and that's another problem in itself, I think. But here again, which network gets the World Series this year? So I know where to look for this thing. Does anybody know?
Fox.
It is going to be Fox TV, and not just Fox 1, right?
No.
Okay,
no,
thank
this
God.
Is Fox TV.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Major League Baseball, and yes, TBS has a game of the week every Sunday, but I don't know how many people even know that. Even baseball fans that I've heard talk about this have just been in absolute awe. You know, how do I find out?
Yeah.
How do I find out where the game is? So MLB, and to be honest with you, I'm not, you know, it's great to take that money up front, but here you are. This is your showcase of the season for your sports. NHL goes through the same thing.
Yep.
Oh,
network
my goodness.
to network every year.
Sidney Crosby just hit the crossbar. The Pens could be up 1-0, but they're not. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, I think when you get to the championships of those two leagues, those demand to be on a network that people know.
Yes.
And I don't care what Fox gave you up front to have, you know, this Fox Sports 1 carrying games and TBS carrying games.
Right.
I don't care what you got up front. You have to make sure that everybody's getting that. And, TBS is something that most people on a cable or satellite system are getting. However, the bottom line is that you have to, create that. Boy, and they do promote within the games.
Yes, they do.
You do see them talk about it. But the fact of the matter is, not everybody's looking. You know, us fans are.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing pre-games, post-games. You know, the game's on tonight on Fox on TBS.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a night during the division series. I think it was a week ago, toward the end of the division series. And honest to goodness, I did not know games were on, period.
Well,
I just didn't know, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, I just have a problem with the whole marketing branding thing with Major League Baseball, Chad, and I'll share this with you. I think it's difficult. Dave and I go back to the days in the 70s and 80s when we could run home from school and actually watch these games. And I said there is probably some conspiracy with the government saying, hey, listen, move those games back later because people on the West Coast aren't getting their work done, and it's killing the economy. And I could care less about the people on the West Coast, but I enjoyed running home with my father, my grandfather, watching those games with the family, and those days are gone. So that's why I asked the question again about where this game will be, the World Series, and I appreciate you telling me it's Fox Network. Let me ask you this, Chad, as we continue discussions about baseball. Any thought as to who the MVPs are now? I mean, obviously, that information will be disclosed shortly, but I mean, who do you think will be the National League MVP or the American League MVP?
Well, let's go to the American League. And again, what folks have to realize is the balloting for that ends at the regular season. So none of the postseason counts.
Right.
So with that said, the American League, I believe, is hands down Mike Trout. He has failed to get it the last 2 years because of a certain somebody in Detroit named Miguel Cabrera.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, he takes home that hardware, and I think he takes it home fairly convincingly.
Okay.
National League's a whole different story. Some people want to give it to Giancarlo Stanton out of Miami because he's an everyday player, and he probably had the best year of an everyday player. But that's a team that didn't make the playoffs. So how do you vote a most valuable player for a guy who didn't make the playoffs? So does McCutchen become a viable option for that? I think he does. Do you put a pitcher in there? And, some people, say that, hey, they have their own award, and that's the Cy Young Award.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. But you're talking about an MVP.
Right.
And so Clayton Kershaw could very easily win that, and I would not be surprised if he did in the National League.
What are your thoughts, Dave, on that and MVP in the National and American League this year?
Good choice. I would, as far as American League, Mike Trout,
hands down.
Outstanding. I really, I like Bryce Harper's season with the, I'm surprised you didn't bring Bryce up, you Nats fan.
Yeah, you didn't mention that, Chad.
What's up?
He was injured most of the year, and honestly, he was kind of very mediocre.
But
I was the Nationals would win. That would be Anthony Rendon. He'll finish higher.
Yeah. But the one that that I would really, and I can't deny what the young man did. I don't think anybody can. And to be honest with you, there were periods there when Andrew McCutchen, after he got hit and had a rib broken in Arizona. I think if you don't have Josh Harrison,
he's got to be in there. He was pretty consistent, Dave.
Yeah, and the guy really stepped up, was consistent, was in the race for the batting crown. Normally, there'd be those nights when he had a little bit of a slow night for him.
Right.
Some guys 1 for 4. It's like, thank God I at least got one hit. Harrison, if he had a 1 for 4 night, he was bummed out.
Yeah. And
Josh Harrison, I would like to see that happen, but I don't think it will. It's oh man, I like Stanton too. I do too. The true definition of most valuable player. If you take that player out, what's it do to the team? Mm-hmm. Does Miami get as close as they do and get a sniff of the playoff picture without Giancarlo Stanton?
Right.
It's really tough. It always does seem to go to a team that ends up having success and at least does get to the postseason.
Thursday Night Sports Talk with Dave Shannon along with Chad States, Greg Banks. Jimmy Tighe, by the way, will be joining us very shortly. Not to cut you off, Dave, but real quick, your prediction on the World Series, if it indeed is the Giants and KC, how do you see that going? How many games?
You know what? I'm going to say that the Cinderella run continues, and amazingly, much beyond the belief of anybody, that the Royals, because I've wanted to doubt them the whole time through. You can go back over the recordings of our show, any of the podcasts, and you're going to find out that I did not think Kansas City would get as far as they did.
Yeah.
I'm a believer now because these guys are playing at a level just across the board that is totally amazing. They're going all out. They run into fences. They dive into the bleachers. Their pitchers are at their peak. I got to go with Kansas City, despite the even year thing. That to me is kind of bizarre too.
Well,
with the Giants, that you can go in the even years every other year, that you're headed to the World Series and walking home with a championship.
And you got to believe the Royals played in some very tight games, so I'm kind of thinking that series may go 7 games. Chad, your feelings on the series once they get together, the Giants and the Royals?
I think destiny wins out over anything else at this point, and I got to go with the Royals. I just think that something's going to happen to that Giants pitching staff. Vogelsong pitched last night, and he really wasn't effective. They've got to go more than just too deep on a starting rotation against the Royals. But that's as tight of a call as what I think you can ever make.
Right.
Between those is very difficult. I'm going to take the Royals. I'm going to take them in 5 and say they only lose one of those games, just because I believe that there's some sort of, magic fairy dust is being sprinkled on them.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta agree. That's my attitude about that too.
Well, we'll see how things work out because first game, by the way, is slated for Tuesday on Fox Network. And, of course, we're thinking that the Giants will win their series against the Cards and meet up with the Kansas City Royals. Meanwhile, it's Thursday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Coming up, fantasy football, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Penn State, Pitt, a whole lot more. You'll want to stick around as Jimmy Tighe gets set to join us in just a moment.
Today, my new dad threw a barbecue.
Today, my new son and I threw a barbecue.
There were burgers and chicken.
I burnt everything. The burgers, the chicken, the salad.
They were delicious.
They were awful.
And then we had watermelon.
I'm allergic to watermelon.
And then we played catch.
I broke Mr. Lewis's window, Mrs. Wakeham's window, Mrs. Wakeham's windshield. And then, somehow, my hand. My hand!
And then my dad even let me drive his car.
The hospital's on the right! It was a rough day.
It was a great day.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit
I can help the next customer over here.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of books. Let's see. How to keep your child safe. Child-proofing your home. Child-proofing your yard. Child-proofing your in-laws' home and yard. Well, I'm guessing you have a little one at home?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you must take good care of her.
Oh, thank you.
Now, let's see. Parent's Guide to Safe Toys. That's a really good one. Parent's Guide to Safe Foods. Parent's Guide to Safe Safety Products. Parent's Guide to Parenting Guides. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and other safety tips.
Of all the things you can read about keeping your child safe, the most important is attached to the back of their car seat. Read the instruction manual and learn to use the latch system. It makes it easier to be sure your child's car seat is installed correctly.
Parent's Guide to Telling Other Parents How to Raise Their Kids.
To learn more, go to safercar.gov. Anchor, Tether, Latch, the next generation of child safety. A message from the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Ad Council.
It's Thursday Night Sports Talk. We're here every Thursday night on the airnetwork.net from 7 until 8, by the way. And by the way, if you miss our live show, you can always check out our rebroadcast on the Air Network Live, I guess, on Fridays at 4. Or we'll put it up on our website so you can listen to it and enjoy it all the week here on the airnetwork.net. It's Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon in Altoona, along with Chad States in Huntington, and joining us on the line is Jimmy Tighe, the fantasy football guy. How you doing, Jimmy?
Good. How you guys doing out there?
Jimmy, what's happening?
Doing good, doing good. Jimmy, I wanted to jump into fantasy football real quick before we roll into the Steeler game, and I won't even go into that. Yeah, I'm looking at some of these starters now, and one name has emerged on some people's drafts recently, and that's Antonio Brown. Is he showing up on any of your league's rosters this year?
In the one they got, man, he was a keeper because I'm in a keeper league up at News 13 in the Poconos.
Okay.
And Antonio Brown was a keeper pick by one of our guys. So,
man.
Yeah, I'm like, you're keeping Antonio Brown?
Well, he's one of the leading receivers now in the NFL. I don't know if you're checking some of those stats, but the guy's doing relatively well.
He's the only one the Steeler has, him and Bell.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got those two guys that are looking like starters. And then, of course, I want to talk about Jones in the Falcons because now we had talked about, Detroit. And what was the guy's name? Megatron.
Elvin Johnson.
Okay, but I'm seeing this Jones guy starting to emerge every week now as a starter on these people's rosters in fantasy football. What's that about?
I guess whenever you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, man.
That's what it comes down to. A lot of these players, like there's a player for Oakland, nobody knew who he was. Holmes is his last name. Jared Holmes, I think, is his name. He was hot last week. Now he's the number one pickup in fantasy football because he had one good game. Mm-hmm. Ronnie Hillman of Denver. Monty Ball goes down. Now everybody's picking up Ronnie Hillman because he had over 100 yards against the Jets last week.
Well, I got to be quite honest. Nobody's really paying attention to what Oakland is doing because Oakland hasn't won anything yet. So why do you pay attention to those teams? But having said that, now tonight the Jets and the Patriots are playing. Let me ask you this. Give us an idea of some of the hot commodities in the NFL fantasy draft and fantasy leagues, and some of those sleepers that we've got to be watching here.
Don't pick Geno Smith. That's one I'm going to say. Don't pick Geno Smith if you're out there.
Hey, people in New York are still saying, I can't believe we picked Geno Smith. What happened to Rex? I mean, seriously, he's having some problems, obviously.
Yeah, a player I would take for the Jets is Eric Decker.
Okay.
He signed up in the offseason last year from Denver.
Okay.
So I would take Eric Decker for the Jets. Jeremy Curley also from the Jets. They're about the only two players I would take from the Jets. Of course, for the Patriots,
Right.
you have Mr. MVP Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, obviously. Is Gronkowski's stock going up at all? Yeah, okay. Just wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, his stock went up. His stock went up.
Yeah.
He's been injury free since last year.
Right.
And he's Tom Brady's favorite target in the red zone. So Gronk's stock is way up there now.
Well, let's talk about that real quick before we get into the Steelers. Thursday Night Football, NFL on CBS. It's the Jets versus the Patriots. And as I mentioned earlier on the show, it seems like quite a disparity when we get to Thursday night. There's always like this 20-point win by some team. I mean, it's always sort of some kind of blowout. Let's go round robin. Dave, first of all, your assessment of these two teams playing tonight, the Jets, the Patriots, and maybe some kind of a score.
I'm going, I guess I'm going to go the way everybody else goes, and or at least I would think, and that's to take the Pats over the Jets. And I see them, that's like another 20-point game, a 35-14 Patriots win.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking, too. What are you thinking, Chad, on the game tonight, Thursday night game, the Pats and the Jets?
I think the Patriots are going to win. The Jets are a mess. I mean, Rex Ryan has to be the coach that gets fired first in the National Football League this year.
Yeah. You think he'll actually get fired?
It's time for him to go. They're toast. I have no confidence in Geno Smith, and all the confidence in the world in Tom Brady, because who can doubt what he can do?
Yeah, that's true, too. What do you think of Jimmy on this game tonight? How wide a point spread on the game between the Jets and the Pats?
Well, I know that the Patriots don't want to be embarrassed again on national television, just like how they were against the Chiefs. So
yeah,
I'm going with the Patriots. Huge win. It's going to be another blowout. 35-10. Patriots over the Jets.
All right, let's talk a little bit about embarrassments. The Steeler game against the Browns on Sunday. I don't want to go over this ad nauseum, but now the Steelers are 3-3. But remember, this time last year they were 2-4, so there's still some hope. But they get beat by the Browns, and they get set to take on the Texans on Monday night. Let's evaluate some of that game on, for instance, Sunday, guys. They were in the red zone. They had a 10-play drive. They settle on 3 points. Come on now. You can't get into...
Yay, Todd Haley! Yay, Todd Haley!
Yeah, I mean, what's happening with what's going on with the Steelers? I just can't believe you put together that kind of a drive in the first quarter and you can't score. Chad?
It was as ugly as I've ever seen a Steeler football team play in my 40 years. It was, Haley has to go. I think it's time for Dick LeBeau to go. And I'm not so sure that Tomlin isn't going to go behind him. You know, and Dave was mentioning earlier, I can't remember if it was actually on the air or off the air, but when you look at what Ned Yost is doing in Kansas City with a lot of good players that's handed to him, who's to say that Tomlin didn't just have that at the beginning of his career, and now we're seeing him really have to try to coach?
Yeah.
And he's not able to get it done.
Do you guys think that's what Cower and Hines Ward were alluding to when they made those mentions about Tomlin and about the Steelers being soft? Dave, you can jump on that.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, it's tough. You know, you tiptoe around things and you don't want to necessarily be a bandwagon person or whatever when you start to make these comments. But there are things that start to show up that lead you in that direction, and you kind of tiptoe around it, and I think you may be right, Greg. I think they're trying to be nice about it, because you don't want to hear somebody, just trashing somebody, and you never know how that's going to come back and maybe haunt you. Yeah. But to be honest with you, you hear this in college football more often, but Mike Tomlin inherited Bill Cowher's team to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, let me ask you this, Jimmy. these guys possessed Steelers. They possessed the ball over 13 minutes, I believe, all in the second quarter. And they still weren't scoring at all. And then, did anybody see this fake field goal attempt? Or I don't know if the guy slipped the ball. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jimmy? I mean, it just looked like buffoonery to me.
It looked like the Keystone Cops.
Yeah, it did.
No, that's the thing is about the Steelers. They do have a good team, but they're undisciplined.
If they would only show up, though, isn't that true?
Yeah, they are undisciplined. Look how many penalties. It's like every other play is a flag against the Steelers. Flag against the Steelers. Now, I was watching, what was it, the Seahawks Cowboys game.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And Romo threw a nice pass down the sideline. The receiver for the Cowboys caught the football. He spiked the ball.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No penalties, nothing.
No penalties.
Okay. No taunting. Okay.
Nothing. Just spiked it right in front of the referee.
Yeah.
Now, you reversed back a couple weeks ago against Jacksonville. Lance Moore caught the ball.
Right.
Did the same exact thing. Gets a 15-yard penalty.
Well, that's probably like a baseball umpire, though. Everybody has different strike zones. You know what I'm saying? So it probably, in addition to that, it happens with referees.
But the Steelers are a very undisciplined team.
Yeah.
They got it. They have the Big Ben, Kiesel, Harrison, Polamalu. They're the faces in that locker room. They have to tell these younger players, look, we got to be more disciplined on the line. We can't have these crazy penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And Tomlin, he might sound all mean and tough in the press conference.
Yeah.
But come on now. What is Tomlin doing?
Well, if you really listen to the guy.
And that gets back to the previous topic.
Yeah.
And Chad brings up a good point, and I think that's where you got to go. Depending on how the season ends up, I think Mike makes it through the season.
Yeah.
But I think in the end, that's, leadership comes from the top.
Yeah, it does.
And you talk about discipline, and that's where, you can say, and the players can do so much, but ultimately if your head coach has control of the players, and that includes, you can't, they're adults, they can go do what they want, but it includes the off-the-field stuff, too.
Exactly.
And, looking at it right off the bat there, about 3 seasons in, all of a sudden you started to see that discipline problem with the Steelers.
Well, I understand that Bell had his hearing, I believe that was yesterday. I'm not sure exactly how that turned out, whether or not he got a misdemeanor when he went to court or not. But that was a preliminary hearing, perhaps, and I don't know if he waived it to court. But we'll have more information on that situation coming up very shortly. Meanwhile, the Steelers get set to take on the Houston Texans, by the way, coming up on Monday night. They're walking into that game with a 3-3 record, and I do believe that the Texans are on the verge of some very big things because they've been losing games very, very closely, Chad. What do you think?
Yeah, they still have. I'm still not sold on Fitzpatrick as a quarterback. Jimmy, you might be able to tie into that a little bit. From a fantasy standpoint, he's just not. He's not what Bill O'Brien's looking for. That's for sure.
Okay.
But J.J. Watt and what he can do, where he can line up, and the havoc that he can cause. The Texans are in any game because of him. So. Pittsburgh has proved that it can play with anybody, and that means literally anybody. I think if a high school team lined up against them, they might win 17-10.
Yeah.
This game will be really, really close. I would not be surprised to see Houston win, because I just don't think there's that many W's left on Pittsburgh's schedule the way they're playing.
Hey, when is Clowney expected to get back off of rehab? Is he coming back anytime soon? I'm hoping he's not coming back for this game. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
The last time I heard, that's not
That's
happen.
not the case. Okay,
yeah, I'm
good.
thinking November was
Okay.
what I heard. Like maybe late November would be a potential return.
Let's go round robin, Dave. You first. Your thoughts on the Steeler Texans game coming up Monday Night Football. What kind of score are we looking at there?
It's going to be almost as bad as a Thursday night game, but it's going to be close, as far as that goes. But I don't know how exciting it'll be other than it'll be a close game, and it'll be I'm going to go with the Texans.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with a score of, let me see. I'm going to say like 17-13.
17-13 Texans. Okay. Hey, Jimmy, you know a little bit about Fitzpatrick, and what about the running game? They got anything that might lead us to believe that they could have a full frontal attack on Monday and just run us into the ground, perhaps?
Arian Foster's one of the best running backs in the league right now. Underrated. Whenever a couple years ago he was really underrated. Now he's a known factor in the NFL. And don't forget my main man, Alfred Blue.
Oh, we forgot about Alfred. That's right.
Alfred Blue at the Texans, baby.
Yeah, okay. Jimmy, hey, what kind of score you think on Monday night as the Steelers and Texans get together?
I would say Texans 21, Pittsburgh 17.
All right, and what are you thinking, Chad, as far as Monday night's football game with the Steelers and the Texans? Any kind of idea on a score, I should say?
Yeah, 12-5 Houston.
Oh, yeah, I understand Las Vegas just shut down the book, man. They're taking no more.
There might be a couple home runs in that game. It's going to be ugly, folks.
Yeah, they're not taking any more votes.
Can I get in on the over-under on that, then?
Oh, man.
Yeah. If you look at
7-point spread there, man.
Greg, if you look at Pittsburgh, they have Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
But Houston has probably one of the other best receivers in the league, which is Andre Johnson, who is a fantasy keeper in most leagues.
Okay, all right.
You have to watch out for Andre Johnson if you're a fantasy owner.
Yeah,
I would pick up Andre Johnson this week.
Okay,
because you know that Steelers secondary is weak.
All right.
And he's just going to torch.
I had a question for Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you pick defensive players, and how do they score points for you then in your fantasies?
There's some leagues you can pick defensive players. I was in a league one time where we picked like 5 defensive players, and it's like they score like differently, like with interceptions or tackles, and things like that. Things like that. But
yeah,
the league I'm in now, it's you pick a whole defensive team.
Okay.
So it's how many fumbles they can recover, how many interceptions, how many tackles, how many sacks.
Right.
That's how it adds up. And then the defenses are also counted as punt returners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So specialty teams, too, in addition to, the defense. Yeah. All right, so the Steelers get ready to take on Texans coming up Monday Night Football. Steelers have a 3-3 record. As I mentioned, and you should note, last year this time, Steelers were 2-4. They're now 3-3. That should make you feel a little better. Let me ask you guys this real quick. Chad, I'll start with you. The Cowboys, they a big surprise this season, along with the Eagles. Who are you more surprised about?
I'm more surprised with Dallas. Dallas finally decided, you know what? Tony Romo can't throw 35 to 40 passes a game and have us win. Let's hand the ball to DeMarco Murray. Let's get a running game going, and guess what? We'll get our defense off the field.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. I don't think it's a case of where Dallas just got that much better from an overall talent standpoint.
Right.
I think they just decided to try something different and go to a run game, and it's working for them. So the Dallas Cowboys are by far my biggest surprise, just because they're doing things differently than what they did before.
Yeah, as I look at these teams that are doing rather well, like San Diego Chargers, they're kind of still in the game. You got the Patriots still hanging in there, but I'm really impressed with these teams that are 5-1, like the Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. Do they surprise you at all, Dave?
Well, Dallas to a degree. You know, we were talking about leadership comes from the top, and I don't think Jerry Jones, outside of the time he hired Jimmy Johnson, that he ever had a coach who was actually a head coach.
Right.
You know, especially of late.
Okay.
You know, you can call Switzer was a head coach. I got to give Barry his due. But the bottom line is his personality and ego will not allow him to pick a head coach that's going to outshine him. He doesn't want somebody to get the headlines, and he wants somebody that he can manipulate.
Yeah, he needs a puppet, is what he's had over the last, probably decade or longer. Since Switzer,
and that's
really.
why Dallas surprises me, because, as Chad pointed out there, change in philosophy is why the team is successful.
Right.
And how that happened, who talked to who, that's a good question. You'd have liked to have been a fly on the wall somewhere in the Cowboys' offices to find out who made that choice.
All I know is the Cowboy fans are really happy now. They're starting to win. Jimmy, are you surprised by their success this season when it comes to Dallas?
No, not at all. It's every team has their downfalls through a couple years, and Dallas had theirs. Now they're up, and they're the new America's team, if you want to say that now. They're back to being America's team.
Yeah.
DeMarco Murray is just eating up the league. He's like LaShawn McCoy last year.
Yeah.
He's just eating up the league, so no, I'm not surprised at all.
Well, the reason I mention that is because, again, you had mentioned being down a few years. The Cowboys, it seemed like a long few years, but maybe that's the cycle the Steelers are going through, too. Quite frankly, until they get themselves together, they're going to be that team that's going to probably never make the playoffs for a few years yet. And, the Cowboys have consistently been at the bottom of the rung in the National League Football League for many years. And I'm just surprised they're winning stuff now. And I'm starting to see all these Cowboy fans starting emerging again because, quite frankly, they must have been hiding for a while.
Well, it's easy. It's easy to be quiet when you're doing poorly.
Yeah, that's true, too.
They were always there. It was just a question of, I'll just sit here and, maybe I won't even wear my Cowboys jersey for a while.
Well, from the outset of the show, and I was just kidding about picking up the underwear and the cologne. What do you think of the Randall case? Do you think maybe he was just in a hurry and didn't have a chance to pay for his underwear and his cologne? And are they going to take care of that situation? Does the league fine him or does the team fine him? What do they do with this guy in this case? He embarrassed the Cowboys.
I think you have to first you let the legal system play out. I don't think the NFL has bigger issues to be concerned with. I think you let the team handle it. And to be honest with you, if I were the team, I would do. I would fine him. I would fine him.
And I think they may have. I think I just read today, and I haven't been able to pull that up, but I think they have fined him. He actually went back to his team and apologized and said, hey, I'm sorry, guys. I can't hardly look you in the eye, but I know that I disappointed people. And then he tried to clean it up by saying, hey, I was going to pay for it, but, I don't know if they were getting on a plane but I'm thinking if you don't have underwear, wait until you get into town and go to Walmart. Get some.
Go to Walmart.
Hey, because they're open 24/7. You know what I mean? And they even have those. They have those self checkouts.
He doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah.
And here's the other thing: you're making $500,000 a year. You ought to have to be able to pick up a couple extra underwear. And hey, you don't need the cologne, or maybe you didn't have a chance to take a shower. But that's my thought. Okay. All right, Thursday Night Sports Talk on the AirNetwork.net. We've got Chad States in Huntington, Dave Shannon in Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Yours truly, Greg Banks in the studio. Listen, we're going to be talking about Bearcat football coming up. In addition to that, Pitt, Penn State, Penguins hockey, they're on the ice tonight. So, Dave, I expect an update coming up in just a moment here on the AirNetwork.net. Stick around.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "Because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Ugh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "Because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Ugh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit adoptuskids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. It's Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. I am Greg Banks in the studio. Hey, the music didn't roll, but that's okay because in the other studios outside of the remote studios, we've got Dave Shannon, Altoona, Chad States in Huntington, Jimmy Tighe, the fantasy football guy, live from Johnstown. Glad to have you guys along again for a Thursday night talk fest when it comes to sports. But, Chad, just for a minute, want to ask you about the Huntington Bearcats, how they're doing, how they did against the Bald Eagle area team for homecoming last week, and who they play this week. Give us a little insight, if you will.
Well, they're going to return to action against Phillipsburg this week, and, let's just say that it's got to be better than what it was last week. Last week was a 32-12 drubbing at the hands of Bald Eagle area, and my phones are dying here, so I got to hold on here a second. But it was a 32-12 drubbing. And, everything that could go wrong went wrong for Huntington last week. Team showed up flat. The defensive coordinator actually ended up being taken to the hospital because of heart palpitations beforehand.
No.
So, it was just ugly all the way around. This week, they play a hapless Phillipsburg Osceola team. I'm sure Matt Adams doesn't want me to say that, but Jason there is out there. So I really just think that Huntington will rebound, but, they got a long road ahead of them.
And they have to travel to Phillipsburg for that game tomorrow. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is at Phillipsburg Osceola.
Hey, well, I wish Coach Mike the best. I hope he's doing well. Did you ever get an update on his health? Is he okay? That would be, I believe, one of the coaches, right? Who was... I
think Chad's phone may have gone.
Oh, his phone may have gone. Well, the other question I was going to ask him was what's his name, involved in football, as big as he is, Matt Adams. I got to believe he played football. He's, by the way, the Cardinals' first baseman now. So
talk about an impressive young man.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And he's one of those guys. I was talking to some other guys, and I've never understood the people's fascination, especially the media people's fascination with Prince Fielder. Now, I'll show you two guys that are playing in that series there tonight, in Matt Adams and Pablo Sandoval. Mm-hmm. There's two guys that are big guys that are really athletic, and I never saw that in Fielder. I hate to say that, and there may be a Prince Fielder fan that's listening.
We're trying to reconnect with Chad. Keep going.
I think Matt Adams at first base has just done an outstanding job. And it's not what you think of when you think athlete, but you know what? He plays his position. He plays it hard. He's made some catches over by the railings at first base that are just amazing. Same thing with Sandoval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to get Chad reconnected again. He's in Huntington, said he was having some phone problems. We're on Skype, by the way. If you'd like to join us on Thursday Night Sports Talk, all you have to do is send a Skype contact request to Greg Banks 3. That's Greg Banks 3. And you get in there, and we'll hook you up and get you on the show. By the way, we're on the air 7 to 8 on Thursday nights live, and the rebroadcast comes up Friday afternoons at 4 p.m. Plus, we put the show up on the airnetwork.net website, so you can listen to it all week and perhaps take a little time out of your weekend. Well, as we await...
Okay. We aren't able to come to the phone at the moment.
We got his message machine. As we await the return of Chad States, let me ask Jimmy and Dave this when it comes to Penn State. Now, Penn State has another bye week this week. Last week they visited the Big House, and unfortunately, the problem with visiting the Big House was they got some big football happening last week. Jimmy, did you get a chance to watch the game or hear it and find out what happened to Penn State?
Yeah, I watched the game, and the one thing I was impressed with was Penn State. Michigan, their quarterback was injured. He couldn't walk. He was hobbling. It was like Byron Leftwich a few years ago when he played for Marshall, and Penn State couldn't stop him. He was playing like Devin Gardner was playing on one foot, and Michigan still won. And I'm like, come on, Penn State.
Well,
here's a guy who's crippled basically, and you can't stop him.
Yeah. Well, one thing it did do, however, it had quelled some talk now. The fact that their coach Brady Hoke might be able to hold on to his job because beating Penn State in any given time is a feather in their cap because they're, of course, in the Big Ten. As Penn State, of course, awaits their next game, they've got another bye week. And, Dave, I'm not familiar with these byes. Like in, basically, this is the second one kind of like this month, isn't it?
Wow. They played a game week off, then they played Michigan week off, and then next week at University Park, Ohio State.
Yeah, and I'm finding that to be kind of interesting in itself. Let's see if we can raise Chad on his cell phone here. Maybe he was able to pick that up, so we can include him in the conversation as well.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's kind of like, both.
Hey, we're back on. I had to call you on your other phone. How's that? I thought he was there.
Chad?
Hello, Chad. No,
Chad?
Well, no, he's not there, guys, so we'll continue. As you were saying, Dave, about Brady Hoke and, of course, the Michigan getting ready to – actually, Penn State has another bye week, which I kind of found unusual. I just found it unusual.
I don't know how the scheduling happened the way it did. I would not want that much time off, especially when you have problems to work on, to have the week off. But I can say this: it's a shame that they. Sometimes you need to lose early to wake yourself up, and both Penn State and Pitt, I thought, came out of the gate really looking good, and looking like they were going to have seasons that were going to make it exciting for college football,
right?
For Penn State and Pitt fans, and it's certainly not getting that way. I'll tell you what, between the two college teams not doing well and the Steelers not doing well, my interest in football this year is just nowhere.
Yeah, mine has kind of waned as well because, you know what, when they're getting beat by teams that, quite frankly, aren't of prominence, it doesn't really lead you to want to spend time sitting around watching the tube. And quite frankly, I missed the Michigan game last week primarily because I was on the road. But I will kind of watch that Ohio State game because I'm intrigued by what's happening with them this season. And I want to see if Franklin can pull it together with his core of really young underclassmen, if you will, to see if they can at least have some success this season and at least come out maybe on the winning side. So that we hope them the best. Meanwhile, speaking of Pitt, now Pitt is playing Virginia Tech after a week of being off. And, Jimmy, I just want to talk to you a little bit about Pitt and, of course, this game with Virginia Tech. How do you think that's going to turn out tonight for college football?
It's pretty cool that Pitt's playing on a Thursday night. National television gets some recruits to look at the program, but this is going to be a Virginia Tech win. Virginia Tech is a tough team, but Pitt would have to win if they want to keep afloat in that ACC conference.
Well, they used to be pretty prominent back in the days. Probably.
By the way, they are up 7-0 here.
Are they?
They are?
Yeah, the Panthers are up 7-0.
Yeah.
All right.
The thing about Pitt is they have James Conner, everybody knows. They have Tyler Boyd, everybody knows, and they have Chad Boychuk, which in my opinion, he was a stud in high school. He watched under Tom Savage last year. So he should be a stud this year in college going into his junior year, but he hasn't impressed me at all. Boychuk has not impressed me at all. For the main fact is he only looks at Tyler Boyd when he has other players out there, Witherspoon, Jones, out there wide open. He'll look at Tyler Boyd. His main focus is with Tyler Boyd, just like in the NFL, where Tony Romo's main focus most of the time is with Des Bryant.
Yeah.
But the thing about Des Bryant and Tyler Boyd, Des Bryant is 6'6", 6'5". Tyler Boyd's only, 6 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, does not all that make sense how I'm saying that? So, Boychuk isn't what I thought he would be coming in.
Well, I'm kind of distracted right now, so you just keep going on because I'm going to try to reach Chad on one of these phone numbers. He tells me by text our lines just went out at the house. So that's why, his house phone went out. So I'll try to ring him up on his mobile phone and see if we can get back in the conversation here. In the interim, Dave, let's talk about what's happening with the Penguins tonight as we get ready to wrap things up. They're on the ice. They've already won 2 games. Their top of the line is Crosby, Kunitz, and Hornqvist, is it? I mean,
Patrick Hornqvist.
So what's going on tonight now? Who are they playing and what's going on?
Dallas Stars tonight, they're up 2-0 at the end of one, and you have Sidney Crosby and Chris Kunitz with the first two goals in the game for the Penguins. And they look good, but I'll tell you what, right off the bat, this team right now has a problem with taking penalties that they really should not be getting into. One of the penalties was called on Hornquist, and it was just where he had his stick, and he did trip one of the Dallas Stars. But that's one of their, they've had 9 power plays, and they've hit on 4 out of 9 on power plays. But they've also had 11 penalties that have been called. They've been shorthanded, that is, 11 times. And you start to get those kinds of numbers, and they're not good. They're not good for your team. You don't want to be shorthanded that often. If you can at all avoid it. And what that does is it takes a toll as the season progresses, too. One thing they do have going for them, Jordan Stahl, for those who have been following the Penguins, Jordan Stahl was just an excellent shorthanded goal scorer. Mm-hmm. And it seems as though Brandon Sutter has stepped up to become, he's not quite as good as what Stahl was, but I'll tell you what, I do love Sutter. I love Sutter's game, period. Man, does he come to play game in and game out.
Hey, let me ask you this about their coaching staff now, because they have a new coach, Coach Johnston, I believe it is. And
yes.
Are you seeing maybe him rebuilding a different culture, utilizing the talent that he has, as opposed to what Baalsma did last year? I mean, what are you seeing different, Dave?
I see that going on. I mean, one of his major philosophies was and the Penguins got guilty of it. It's a great way to play. It's pretty when it works.
Right.
But he got them away from the stretch passes. They're still going to happen. But it's not going to be an emphasis for the team. And the team buys into it. And that's one of the things about the NHL. I think more so at times than any other sport that I watch, that a coach can dictate and the players will do what the coach, whatever his philosophy is, that's what they set out to do week in and week out. And I see the Penguins really responding to that. I think the issue with the defense is going to be addressed, and how to avoid penalties, because they really have to cut down on that. One of the things, I was watching a little bit of the pregame while we were getting ready for tonight's show, and Rick Tocchet has taken over the duties of organizing the power play for the Penguins this year.
Wow.
And they are crediting Tocchet with a lot of the early success in the power play, because another power play goal here tonight. And, it's the Penguins are just, man, if they can eliminate the amount of penalties they're taking at this point, which I think they will, I think they're going to sit down and eventually come up with why it's happening and address that so that it's not happening as often. Once they do that, man, it's typical that this team, nobody stops them. And then eventually, here's the one thing, Malkin is not really playing at, as far as goal scoring goes at least, is not playing at full throttle yet. He's had some assists, but, Malkin is in a different kind, it almost seems like a different kind of role this year, and maybe in his own mind. And he's responded to that. So, sometimes Gino, in comparison with Sid, is the type of guy that when you put that pressure on, or he feels like he has to carry the team, it really does get to him, I think.
Right. Well, apparently,
Jimmy, I think you might agree with that.
Yeah, we haven't been able to raise Chaz States again. I did get a text from his phone lines went down. I'm trying to call his cell phone, and unfortunately, it may not be with him. He may have that at work. But Jimmy,
you've reached Chad.
Yes, Chad. Jimmy, I just want to kind of get your assessment of the Penguins, because I know you used to be a pretty big Penguin fan at one time. Are you following the Penguins rather, frequently, or are you just kind of tuning in and out these days?
I'm following them frequently. The one thing I can say is that it's their defenseman, Oli Mata. He second year in the league. Mm-hmm. He's still learning how to play pro hockey.
Right.
How to play the NHL.
Yeah.
He did good in the regular season last year, but then when he came in the playoffs, he sort of had lot of errors, things that you wouldn't expect. That
yeah.
They played a long season, and then and then they let Brooks Orphick go to, I believe it was Washington, Dave.
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing I'm going to be worried about is the Penn's defensemen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they're forwards and their wingers. It's a studded lineup, but their defensemen is what I'm going to be worried about with Mata. With
right.
Who else is on that?
Well, Letang.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I love Chris, and I love his aggressiveness, but sometimes it really nails him.
Mm-hmm.
His aggressiveness, he's an offensive-minded defenseman, and there are times when he just gets stuck way deep in the offensive zone, and then somebody has to peel back and cover for him.
Well, Dave, as we get ready to wrap this up, this edition of Thursday Night Sports Talk, what kind of score we got now as the Penguins are on the ice this evening?
Once again, I think they're just getting underway. I got sidetracked here. I've been watching the Pitt game now. By the way, in the first quarter, they're still 7-0.
That's Pitt
Panthers. The Panthers are in the red zone.
Taking on the VA Tech.
Tech. Yeah.
Hey, Wanya. Yeah, got to wrap things up tonight, guys. I appreciate you, of course, joining us on Thursday Night Sports Talk. Unfortunately, we lost the connection with Chad States, but Chad, hang in there. It's okay. We were getting into hockey anyhow. But it's our pleasure, and of course, we always want you to join us on Thursday nights. It's Thursday Night Sports Talk from 7 to 8 live on the airnetwork.net. Don't miss the broadcast, by the way, Fridays at 4 o'clock, and look for the show up on our website at the airnetwork.net. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you.